war is over. And he did. I had a lieutenancy on June 19th, and suddenly I was a lieutenant. I didn't really know. When I came in and saw my buddies with whom I had been living for the whole time since we came to England, they presented me with a broomstick, and to show their appreciation for my improvement in life from here on. From now on, I would no longer eat out of a mess kit, but I would eat like normal people, stacked like cordwood. And I saw the funeral of these. They were divided among 3 towns, and they were very formal funeral services arranged, where each one of these bodies had been washed and by German women who were ordered to come with wash basins and soap and linen to clean these bodies. And it was for these women and for all of us an experience to see how these people who said, no, we didn't know about anything, and so when they really saw what had been done. And I have all the pictures of it. And then I was transferred to Paris, and ultimately I came to, from Paris. I was sent to Fürstenhagen, which was a miracle factory that had never been discovered by the bombing because it was camouflaged so perfect that they had 60,000 slave laborers who produced ammunitions and related matters in this factory, which was not discovered. And this factory now became, by consent of the 4 allies, became the processing center of recreating the total German government. Every bit of German government, namely Hitler's files, everything were brought there to be sorted, to be available for the prosecution. And you must imagine, when all of these people, namely Hermann Göring and all of the people who were captured, we had all of them except for Hitler, Goebbels and Himmler, we had them. And these men had no idea what we actually had. We had everything that they had ever signed. And imagine what this is, what kind of a conscience you must have when you know that you have committed murder on a scale unknown. And here is an institution, a new organization that has all of our files. Imagine what this must have given. And ultimately, of course, they discovered it because suddenly they were asked to come and speak to somebody. And it was most likely first to Colonel Ehmann. It was the man whom I mentioned this morning. He was the one who had finished Dutch Schultz, the man who ran Murder Incorporated. And he treated these defendants as if they were Dutch Schultzes, because he knew they were worse than Dutch Schultz. And so he suddenly, there were probably over 1,000 of these cases, and ultimately it was written about it. There are famous books that have appeared on the subject. But then I was transferred to Wiesbaden, and there, of course, I told you this morning the story of Gräby, and this was one of the many stories that came. But to myself, there was something that was showed you also what exposure to this kind of thing does to you yourself. Suddenly, I was ordered to run from Nuremberg to Wiesbaden to pick up the Ilse Koch pictures of, or not the pictures, the actual lampshades that she had made from human skin of tattooed people. The moment some tattooed prisoners were taken, they were reported to the Buchenwald concentration camp, and she ordered these people killed with poison and skin to make into there were, I think, 4 lampshades, and I went to Wiesbaden, I had the orders, give them to me, and they put them in a brown bag, and they were sitting next to me in the car, and to me it was total. I had a factory in Epernay, and produced this whole catalog for every one of the there were 2 officers and 4 enlisted men. I made 6 copies of this and gave it to each one of them in this form. And here you see this wonderful colonel of mine who had been apparently a boxer because he had a clearly broken nose, and this perhaps he earned when he worked for UEP Long. And here we are coming to the views. I became a very popular entertainer during the time of the trial, because on weekends I was always requisitioned to guide officers to various sites that were interesting. Among them, the most interesting was, of course, Berchtesgaden. We would go to Berchtesgaden, and I remember on the first trip to Berchtesgaden, there was a wonderful experience. There was a Major Moroni, and Major Moroni was a massive man. I would say he was probably 6 feet 5 or 6 and broad, and also relatively deep. And he had engaged me to obtain for him a pair of leather pants. You know, the famous Bavarian leather pants. And of course, I told him, Major, it is impossible to get in Berchtesgaden a pair of leather pants because the 101st Division has been here. They have cleaned the place out. It's absolutely hopeless. So he said, now listen to me, Lieutenant. Let's go in and see what can be done. So I go into store, and finally we come to a very fine leather goods store, and it's clearly a place where leather pants were made. And I say to the man, the colonel would like you to make for him a pair of leather pants. And the man looked at him and says, impossible. I have not enough leather to do this. It is, I have a couple of small pieces. I could make something for a boy, maybe 5 or 6 years old. But, and now Major Moroni says to me, give him the needle, and see that if Goering comes in, you will do. And so I say, now listen to me. If Hermann Goering would come in here and said, I want to have a pair of leather pants, you would jump and do it. And the man sort of looks at me and says, sir, I'll tell you, I made leather pants for Goering. I know how much material I would need. I said, you are kidding. You are kidding. He says, I'm not. And with that, he reaches under the counter, and there is a stack of order books about this high. And he lays them out, and suddenly he says, this must be it. He opens it, and the dimensions are enormous. They start with knee. Well, I guess the knee was something like this. And then comes the waist, which is already very significant, the length of the legs, and then comes the description of the measurement around the seat. And it is gigantic. I have somewhere the numbers, but I can only give you the answer of Colonel Moroni, Major Moroni. He said, what a butt! So I didn't get the point. Now these are pictures that I took of Hitler's house and what was going on there. And it looked very, very busted up. And there are pictures of his famous house up there. These are views.
In Berchtesgaden.
in Berchtesgaden. All of it is in Berchtesgaden. This here is along the highways of Germany. This is where we found abandoned German airfields with still semi-operable fighter planes and whatnot. And here is my favorite Colonel Fairman, Charles Fairman, and Colonel well, the name will come back in a minute. The Colonel, and here is Peggy Brown, the one who provided me with that wonderful invitation, and here it is. And here is a view of Nuremberg, and you can see the famous place where Hitler spoke, and you saw it today in that wonderful film that our president made for us here. And there was visible Hitler standing on this famous lecterns in the stadium in Nuremberg, and here is the same stadium, the same pulpit, but standing there is Colonel Bailey. Colonel Bailey, my favorite colonel, and he salutes just like Hitler. And above us, he is, you are seen in the picture, and it stands in front of the house, which is guarded against attacks. This is a picture of the funeral of the German concentration camp victims on May 8th, 1945. And it is a gruesome set of pictures, and it served me well because I knew that one of these days somebody would come and say all of these pictures of cruelty of the Nazis, and so this is all fake, that is Jewish propaganda. And I knew I would hear this one day if I would give a lecture about it and told them of what I'd seen. And I was waiting for it. I went to every one of my own lectures, and I had an envelope with these pictures, only I had them enlarged. And sure enough, once I gave the lecture, and a man came up and said, I want to tell you something. You are one of the many people who have become victims of Jewish propaganda. And I said, tell me a little bit more. And so he began to tell me, he gave me this whole spiel, and I said, now I will turn around and tell you something, that you are just one ignorant jerk. Because here you can see it the way it really was. And you should be careful about listening to people who have no judgment. So, and he beat it like a door. This is crossing the Elbe River. This is again a views of Rotenburg. And this picture up here, the black framed one, is an interesting view of the place of the Red Schoolhouse in Reims, where on May 8, 1945, Keitel signed the surrender of the German armies. And this was a picture of our training course in England, where we were shown how you could become an airborne soldier and become a paratrooper. Out of our whole Corps headquarters, there was not a single volunteer for airborne jumpers. We all preferred the somewhat unpleasant and also risky glider infantry. We were dragged to the place where the action was, and it was equally unpleasant. But And in this instance, it was an easier way of earning $50 a month more, which we got as a danger premium, because very often sliders collapse. They got manufactured to make working facilities with which they produce these wonderful gliders. They were used only once. They were never retrieved. They were cracked up usually, totally, when we landed. And this is a picture which shows some relatives of mine whom I discovered in Germany after the war. And one of the pictures, or many of the pictures, show in my book. This is one of the pictures too. And while I was in the last station in Mecklenburg, only about 100 miles from where I was born, we suddenly got a command from General Ridgway, and that we should, Colonel Morse and I, should go over to the Russians and see whether we could persuade them to let us fly our enormous supply of air transportation to the big airport at Bath, where they had over 10,000 Allied flyers who had been shut down over Germany and were incarcerated there. And we wanted to fly them all out at one time, and we went over there, and they mistook us for a British general. They were not familiar, and we had consumed most of the welcoming liquor when the British came, and so very quickly we had to do all of this drinking again, and the drinking always started that they would make a glass and bottoms up always, and it's always started since we were the host, President Roosevelt, and they were not sure whether he was still alive, and President Truman, so there were two downs. Then came President Churchill, and one down, and then came, of course, President Stalin and President de Gaulle. And by that time, we all had very much to run out, and suddenly there was great excitement, and the British general came, and we did the whole thing over, but we did not get to get the Russians to give up their prisoners, and it had to stay for several months because the Russians loved to have hostages. They wanted to see it. And here you see the picture of the Russians. And they were decidedly unpleasant, and I knew that it was not anything that I would like to have any of my family ever have to do with. And these are still pictures with our flying machines and my friends. I do not know whether I mentioned that this young veteran who had been in North Africa, in Sicily, in Italy, and in Normandy, and he was from the Heinz, had a job at the Heinz factory in Pennsylvania, and was totally enamored with the 50-cent varieties. And he challenged me on the first day when he met me and said, I looked to him as if I need further toughening up. And so, although he was only 130 pounds, he would challenge me. I weighed about 160 pounds. He challenged me to a wrestling match every day after dinner. And we had this wrestling match, and he lost every day. But the exhaustion to which I was exposed in pinning him, because he was a wily and good fighter, was such that I would have to lie down for about 30 minutes after the fighting on my bed to rest for further activity. And here is a picture when we entered for the first time Germany. This is the city of Aachen, Aix-la-Chapelle. It's the town in which Charlemagne is buried, and it was interesting. I spoke for the first time to Germans who had lived through the bombing that had gone on, and Germany had received a pasting that like no other country had ever experienced anything. And here is my unit, the small legal unit, and this is the entrance from Luxembourg into Germany. And here you see on the one side an endless stream of prisoners of war passing us, and this is a picture here, this one, of my colonel standing with a little girl in Antwerp, which was heavily at that time being bombarded by buzz bombs. That was a very popular activity. They didn't do too much damage because the British had developed something which was quite astonishing. They had some special very fast bomb fighter planes, and they found out that they could control their speed so that the fighter plane would follow the buzz bomb and put their wing under that wing at the same speed and raise it a little bit, and that diverted the buzz bomb to explode in some fields, which was a fabulous thing. I think the Germans didn't know how well this was done. They would have probably invented something to prevent it. And this is the way we traveled and what we saw and how we lived. And this is again the famous place in Reims, which I photographed the second time. This is the picture in London. It showed St. Paul's, and still in good shape. And here was one of the great defense activities that Hitler had made. And when you think of it, how stupid it was, it is almost impossible, because he had built, for which they had called his wonderful church, the dragon teeth. And the dragon teeth were going to prevent our units, our tanks, to get through. How ridiculous for a nation to order this nonsense, this expenditure to build this, when they had invented the first airborne invasion in Cyprus. I mean, this is so ridiculous.
Good food, right?